Welcome back to Ion Radio. I'm John, and this is the Backseat Admiral. I'm going to give it a second while chat catches up and make sure my sound and everything's working right, and then we're going to start talking about the latest episode that we ran. So we're going to be going over today Season 6, Episode 2 of our Armada videos. Ken and I both try something different, and it ends up being a slugfest. Sound is good. Perfect. Awesome. Welcome to the chat, Dublick, and Ken is here as well. I kind of knew Ken was going to be here. We were talking right before I went live. So that's good to hear. Okay, so this match was our second episode of Season 6, and like I've talked about before, in Season 6 and 7, we're flipping our commanders, because back in Seasons 3 and 4, Ken and I divided the commanders up between ourselves, and now we've flip-flopped who's running which commander, so then we both have played all the commanders on the channel. So in this episode, we have Vader and we have Kraken with a K, which is the CIS leader. So let's dive right into that. We're going to go over my fleet first. I have 2 Providences, a Hard Cell, and a Gazanti. The idea for this fleet, you'll see it when we start talking about the Providence themselves, is I keep trying to do a salvo build. Whenever I try it, it's like I have a salvo, Ken accuracies my salvo, I move on. And then I tried it with the cards that allow you to do a ready defense token, and then he hits me like really, really hard, and I have to use like all my defense tokens, so couldn't really get around that. So this time I decided, let's build a double salvo list. So I have the Providence class Dreadnought with Kraken, and for those of you that don't know, Kraken allows you to, if you're at medium range, if another ship is at medium range of the target that you're shooting at, it allows you to set a dice to any side with 1 icon. So he's pretty powerful. You can do that once per activation. So like Screed, in a salvo, it's technically the other player's activation. So you can do it on their turn, and then you can do it on your turn once as well. So I also have local fire control, which allows me to switch out the contain for another salvo. So then I can have 2 salvos. And then flat gun, so my salvo dice can go farther. I have heavy ion emplacements, and if you look at the ship, though, you look at it and you're like, heavy ion emplacements, you need a blue crit, and you only have 1 blue die. But that's all I need. With Kraken, I get to just automatically set it. So if I don't roll a blue crit, I just automatically change that crit if Kraken's in range and can do his ability and everything like that to a crit, and then it will go off, which is pretty awesome. So that's what I do with Kraken on that attack. And then I have external rack, so when we get up close and personal, I can throw a little bit of extra oomph at someone. And then I have 2 turbo laser slots. So I put Link turbo laser towers to reroll, and this reroll works for the normal attacks, and then it also works for salvo attacks as well. And if you look at this ship is actually longer ranged than the other Providence. The Providence carrier is 2 reds, 2 blues, 2 blacks out the side. This is 3 reds. So I know it's technically like an Architon shooting out the side, but that's an extra dice at range, and you get to re-roll it, and you can crack in things, and you can set dice. So there's a lot of manipulation here. And then you have DBY 827 heavy turbo lasers, which work on salvos. And again, it's a salvo build. So with flat guns at medium range, you're throwing your entire salvo at someone. You can possibly crack in a dice to a side, and then you can heavy turbo laser. So like out of the 3 dice, right? You roll a blank red, a blue something or other, because blues are always good, and then a black dice. If the black dice doesn't come up as a double, then you can just DBY it to a double. and then you can re-roll the red dice. And if you still don't get anything, then you can just crack in a dice to whatever side you want. So if you wanted to accuracy, because nothing's worse than getting salvoed with like tons of damage, or you get lucky and you roll the double on the red, and then you can just make it like here's a double red, a double black, and have fun with a blue crit in there as well. Like it's just a mean, like you can do lots of damage. In theory. So the problem is Ken was like, oh, I normally roll 1 accuracy so you can't salvo in your builds. 2 accuracies, no salvo. So there's always a hole in that plan. I feel like when I play CIS, I'm mainly playing like the comic book villain that, ooh, you got me again with the plan. My second ship is a Providence class Dreadnought, and it's exactly the same as the other one, except it doesn't have a commander on it. So then you don't really have a choice but to shoot at me, and hopefully I get to salvo you. I really just wanted to try to kill as much as I could with salvo. Because I've played before single Providence, then you just ignore the Providence and you go after everything else. But when like 2 Providences take up over like half of your fleet, you kind of are forced to engage with them. The next ship is a hard sell class transport. It has Teaks, Projection Experts, Parts Resupply, and Beast of Burden. This is the Dreadnought's best friend that's supposed to just be like coming in behind them, keeping them alive, and like passing shields. So with this whole setup, you can just go straight engineering on the hard sell, because it's going to be Projection Expert seeing the shields away. And then Teaks can be whatever you need it to be, which usually the first time it'll probably be, hey, give me an engineering, so then I have an engineering token. Then Parts Resupply can throw out the engineering tokens to your 2 Dreadnoughts, so then they can try to get their shields back, and then you can do your shields and then do something else. So you can navigate and get your shields with Teaks and pass them. So it makes them a pretty versatile ship for passing stuff. And then has Beast of Burden there. So if you hit me with a bunch of stuff, maybe I'm refreshing my salvos so they can stay around longer if, I had salvos that were being spent. And then the last ship is a really cheap single Gazanti class cruiser with heavy ion emplacement, because if I get it in range, Teak says pretty much here, have a heavy ion emplacement. So between my ships, I have 3 sources of heavy ion emplacement, so hopefully I can rip your shields off really, really fast. And then if you're shooting me, the hard sell and the Gazanti are practically no points added together. So that's less than 100 points. So to really get a win off of me, you're going to have to take down a Dreadnought. And that means hopefully I can salvo you. So that was kind of the idea. Strip shields off with the heavy ion, and then just let salvo like plick away and kill ships with it. So that was kind of my idea. It didn't work necessarily how I thought it was, because Ken's really good at rolling accuracies. So a lot of my shots I couldn't salvo, but like eventually, you're going to have to block my useful tokens so you can kill me. Otherwise, I'm just bracing and redirecting and healing all the damage you give me. So it's like a point that you have to figure out of how much damage can I take while I'm trying to get damage to you. So that's my build. If you have any thoughts or comments about it, hit me up in the comments, and then we're going to jump over to Ken's build. And I was looking through before we started the stream, Ken's build, and it actually had a lot of things that reminded me of how I play, especially with this Star Destroyer. So Ken's Darth Vader, and he has 2 Architons, a Raider, a Gazanti, and a Star Destroyer. I actually think, what was last week's? I think there was a time that Ken and I looked at each other. I looked at what we had, and I'm like, we basically built the same thing. Yeah, it was last week. My build for tag. Let's go back. Like, it almost could just be the same picture. Like, Raider, 2 Architons, a Star Destroyer, and a Gazanti. And then like it's the same thing, just with a couple different upgrades. I'm like, this seems really familiar. I feel like, because we filmed it in the same day, spoiler alert, and I'm like, I feel like I could have just moved my fleet across the table, and then we could have filmed the next one. So, hey, how's it going, Nimurim PL? Welcome to the chat. So, I'm like, this seems very familiar. It's kind of funny how you can just take the same chassis and make them slightly different, and it plays like a completely different fleet. That's one of the nice things that about Armada. So Ken took the Imperial Star Destroyer Simoon 1 refit for long-range dice, which is usually what you see when people are playing Darth Vader, because they're trying to spend their defense tokens as far away as possible so they're not taking return fire and having to worry about their tokens. Commander Vanto, because he pretty much should be glued to any Imperial Star Destroyer, so you can get some token economy. Gunnery teams, so you can shoot more than one thing a turn. Hardened bulkheads. I like hardened bulkheads. I know I've mentioned this before, but a lot of times I will just battering ram my ships into where they need to be, and hardened bulkheads helps out survivability, especially when you have like a small ship that you're going to just use as a speed bump so you can shoot bigger ships. XI7s, because when you're rolling tons of damage, especially because you can almost guarantee all of them are going to be hits with Darth Vader, XI7s is super helpful. And then you have Link Turbo Laser Towers, so if Darth Vader still comes up with blanks, you can re-roll those red dice again. So it's a pretty powerful Star Destroyer. I like it. I've started to, more often than not, instead of doing Spinal in a list with a Simoon, taking this setup, which is XI7s and Link Turbo Laser Towers. So the next two ships are Architon class light cruisers. Ken has trying out his favorite card. I honestly think this, like, if I were to define cards that Ken likes using more than anyone else, it's advanced projectors. Like, he uses them always on his MC30s, and now he's just blending them into other factions. So he has advanced projector, so he can shift the shields to the side, which worked out quite well for him in this game to keep things barely alive. And then he has slave turrets because he has Darth Vader, so he doesn't need to really worry about any rerolls, because Darth Vader will just allow him to do that with his ability. And then you have like the contain that you're probably not using, so you can use that to trigger Darth Vader, and you're only doing one attack, so it's not like you're worried about going through all your defense tokens. Like the week prior, I had TRCs on an Architon and tag, so I was able to get tokens back and expert shield tech, so I was planning on just burning through my tokens as fast as possible. But with this, you're only making one attack, so you only need one token to do Vader. Advanced projectors are going to allow you to move the shields around and then evade just when you need to. So it's kind of like a balanced little build. And if you concentrate fire, it's 5 red dice out the side with full rerolls with Darth Vader is no joke. Like I talked about when I was mentioning about the Providence, one of the reasons why I like that version better than the other one is technically you have farther reach because you have the 3 red dice. This is the same basic idea, but like a Providence can only, with concentrate fire, get 4, while this is throwing 5. So Architons, for their points, like outclass, if you can stay at range, the Providence that I was running around with. Ken has then a Raider 2 with heavy ion emplacements, and it's just a strip shields. And Vader allows you to like spend an evade if you want to re-roll if you really need to, which is always good to try to hunt for the crits. It's cheap. I prefer Iden on there because it gives it a little bit more survivability, but like heavy ion on a Raider is still good. Then the last ship, the bane of my existence in this game, Ken was able to slice me on a couple turns, and it really hurt. Yeah, it's just a Gazanti cruiser running around with slicer tools. That's what it's doing. It's not here to pass tokens because his Architons really don't need tokens. The Raider doesn't need tokens, and the Star Destroyer, while it could get some tokens, like it has Vanto on it, and you just do what you need to with him. So that's Ken's build. So let me get to the right folder again. So I'm gonna check out comments. If you guys have any thoughts or comments on this, go ahead and let me know, and then we're gonna jump back, talk about how the game actually went down. Quentin, welcome to the stream. Not necessarily strong, but on a salvo build, wouldn't Flag Bridge plus Jedi Hostage be fun? Do not need to sacrifice flak guns, though. Let me look it up. I haven't used Jedi Hostage in a while, so I would have to check what that actually does. Because not many people use it. I think I used it maybe once when the Clone Wars first came out, and I was just getting things out on the table. When an enemy declares you as a target of a non-salvo attack, if this card is readied, the attacker gains a raid token of its choice. If able, when an enemy ship at close range reveals a command, blah, blah, blah. And if it's a squadron dial, they can exhaust this for the rest of the turn. You cannot spend more than one defense token. So that's when they attack you. They get a raid. So it could be fun, just to annoy people. But it wouldn't necessarily benefit this fleet more than flak guns is my feeling on that. But like you said, probably would be fun. I've been trying to think of lists because I don't think I have TF for these next couple seasons, but like it works pretty well in a TF fleet just to annoy people, especially like if you have like hard cells around your big ships that have it. Then it's like hard to get into range, and tossing a dial's annoying. Unless you like face the rebels, and then they don't care because it's all speed 4 small little ships that have command 1. So took a break from Polish National Armada live stream. Yeah, I saw that was going on. I haven't had time to check it out yet. So it's always curious what Polish do in Europe as a whole. We talk about that on the command stack, about how, like, our last episode we talked a lot about this, but like how different regions have different like play styles and like ships that they generally bring. And it's not necessarily that any of those play styles are better than other play styles. It's just areas just play completely differently. Like East Coast versus Midwest versus West Coast in our Armada plays differently. And then Europe has a different process to play. Like in the last couple of major like United States tournaments, you see like day one someone scoring like 28 out of 30 points or 30 out of 30 points or something crazy like that. And over in Europe, like the top player is like 21 points because they don't play for like big wins like we do here, but everything's like super strategic and tight. So I plan on watching probably that at Speed 2 later on and just checking it out. So I'm curious to see what type of builds are shown on that stream. So really wanted to test out slave turrets with Architons. Tempted to try a similar build, but with TRCs and Vader. TRCs and Vader, that's just a lot of... You don't necessarily get use out of both of them compared to just adding a die and then re-rolling it with Vader's my take on that. I feel like Architons, you either need an ability to re-roll because you have low dice count, which Vader takes care of, or you needed a way to add in dice to make it more potent if you have another means for re-rolling. So re-rolling and setting dice and that I think might just be a little bit overkill, but I could be wrong. Also, why not Corvus for deployment padding? That one's directly toward Ken, and Ken would have to ask that, and then if he responds, I'll answer it. So we don't see slicer tools that much, so it's kind of surprised when it shows up on the table. Yeah. So last Worlds, this was 2019. Don't quote me on that. I think it's 2019. Everything's kind of been a blur the last couple of years, but I got royally screwed by slicers before like 1.5 and everything like that. Like in day 2, I think I activated my squadrons with my Sloan build once in the games that I played. Like I just kept playing rebels with like double slicer tools and activation padding. So like here's an engineering for a ship that doesn't need it. No squadrons for you. So that was kind of rough. So I usually like that's like my Sloan builds look differently than everyone else's is because I strongly bring padding to keep my ships from getting sliced. Yeah, since you force them to attack you, they get raided. True. Okay, I see where you're coming from that, but like flat guns, I think is still better because I think they get to choose. So let's see. Yeah, they get a raid token of their choice. So like what Ken would have done is he would have been like, okay, cool, I'll take a squadron raid for a no squadron game. And then he's going to attack me again. And then he's going to be like, okay, cool. I guess I'll take an engineering because I don't plan on engineering. And then on his third attack, he's like, okay, cool. I guess I'll take concentrate fire. And then on the fourth attack, he'll take a navigate. And his Architons are only going to take one per turn. So in this instance, so it will take all 4 turns. So the first turn you don't have combat, second turn maybe combat. So then by turn 6 they've collected all the tokens and it doesn't matter. So that's one of the problems with that and not being like a TF to make them pay for it. Like a lot of times your ships can just move around raid. So you'll see a lot of raid actually. Spoilers for the Madness tournament, but like I straight up just choose surprise attack sometimes because sometimes it doesn't matter and surprise attack's the best option. So like if you can move around raid doesn't do anything. So that's a lot of a point investment of me just not throwing 3 dice at someone. Bunch of CIS from what I saw, but that's not very in-depth dive. I left that to the podcast crew. Yeah, I was reading last night, like, it was like a couple Grievous, like 2 Grievous lists made, and then a Grievous list had a drop, so like a Romedy list came in, and then it was like Agate, your standard everything that was making it. So there was nothing that was a big surprise there. Jerry Grievous, Loom, Grievous, Kraken, Martuk, Mahdi, Agate, Grievous dropped, and then Ramadi moved in to make, the constant Martuk, Kraken, Mahdi, Grievous lineup show. I wonder if it's the Luminara list that was doing well before, which is the 2 Venators and 2 Peltas, because that's a mean list. Why not Corvus? Points realistic for me. 1 deployment does not usually matter. I tend to need 2 or 3. Having said that, when you need that 1 extra deployment, it's fine. So that's why Ken didn't do it. He just was point starved and he felt like it wouldn't matter that much. So let's jump into, I think Ken had the bid and selected to go second, making me go first, and giving me these options of opening salvo, planetary ion cannon, and volatile deposits. And I decided that planetary ion cannon was definitely my best bet. Opening salvo, giving it to Vader, a Simoon, and Architons, like that's so many dice coming at you for nothing. And then you can just focus down a ship. So like with a concentrate fire, the Architons can throw 2 black dice, or technically 3 black dice, slave turrets, and that. So that's 3 black dice and 4 red dice at long range with Vader full reroll. But no thank you. I don't want that twice. And then the Simoon just becomes like nasty as well with XI7. So like I'm done. I would rather take that planetary ion attacks and call it a day. And then volatile deposits, giving him the ability to do things to me and then having to like keep a ship back when he just has a transport with slicer tools that can just sit there and farm tokens the entire time didn't sound good either. So I went with Planetary Ion. So let's see how the game's set up. You can see here, it blends in pretty well. So there's a Planetary Ion here, here, and here, which kind of like forces me to an edge, and like a Gazanti's a Gazanti for me. So like if you want to shoot at a Gazanti, cool. I'd rather not get hit by the ion cannon from one of my main ships. So I kind of lined up the Gazanti so I could go either direction. Ken kind of lined up on the other side. Sadly, he got last deployment, so he could just drop down his ISD wherever he wanted based off of where I did. So I decided to just line up on this side, and I can just go full speed and just try to sweep. Ken really didn't want to have my second place objectives for this game, and I think he was right. Let me look it up for you in a second. Because if I remember correctly, yeah, mine was most wanted, just so that I could throw extra dice, and then you can shoot at my Gazanti. I don't care. Fleet ambush, because then I can just send my Gazanti for free onto your side, and then you have to kill it with rear shots while I get the Kraken effect, and then dangerous territory. So that was kind of the deployment, and my idea was just to try to pin as many Architons as I could against the board edge, and use Kraken. So we move forward, kind of like daring Ken to basically kill my Gazanti, and Ken killed my Gazanti real good. He ioned it, and then like a Psy Moon with accuracies just obliterates it. So it sadly wasn't able to get its full dice off in that effect. And then I was preparing to... Me pointing at the screen doesn't really help you guys. So I was preparing to move my Providences, hopefully cutting off the Architons and taking one out. And then my little ship back here was just very much so out of position when a Speed 3 Psy Moon comes through. Ken kind of has himself boxed in here, though, with ships very, very tight, with an asteroid in front of him and not able to move. So I could take shots at him here, and then also out my other side at these Architons. And this is where he got me sliced. And like getting sliced to have squadrons when you have no squadrons really is really rough, especially when like I need engineering because I'm going to be taking a lot of damage, and I need navigates because Speed 3 Providence go click once and they're like terrible for maneuvering. So I was supposed to be like slowing down and starting to engineer here, and I wasn't able to do that because Ken's slicing me, which was not fun. And so like you could see it's like it felt to me like the parts of Revenge of the Sith when they're like plowing the trying to keep the Providence with the Emperor, and Anakin's crashing another ship into Coruscant alive, because I'm like, that board edge is right there and I'm going so fast and I'm taking so much damage, I gotta stay alive. Architon scooted around me, so I'm not going to be able to do much against them. Like, they're very, very injured, so I think I pick off one of them in the next turn, and this now Star Destroyer is like barreling down on me. And thankfully, in this case, I was first player, so I was able to shoot it and kill it before it killed me. But if it was reversed, like the Star Destroyer in this position, like it just, especially with like Harden, it just like kills me and comes through me. So this ship would manage to just turn and like skirt this edge, and this other ship is just in the hot seat, and this Raider, the Slicer, comes in and slices me again. And then I have an Architon barreling down on me. I think the way the game ended, which was super, super funny, if you guys haven't watched it, you probably shouldn't be listening to me explaining how the game went. But you should go back and watch it. And like, I was like counting in my head, I'm like, Ken hasn't pulled his structural yet. So what I need to do is I need to make it so that I can possibly kill this Gazanti, because it like was close to dying after shooting me. I salvoed it because it doesn't have enough dice, and then I could shoot it again, and sadly I didn't get the crit. If I were to have gotten the crit, the next card Ken pulled out was a structural, because his Architon landed on this asteroid and we know it was a structural. And if I were to have gotten the crit with my Providence that shot into it on the last turn, the little Gazanti would have exploded. And it doesn't really change the score or the outcome of the game. It just would have been funny. So I think this Providence is like on like no health at all. We'll go check out the health of the end of the game in a second, but like it's barely alive. This one has damage too, so it's kind of a brutal game for both of us. Let's see, where is that? Here it is. Yeah, I have one shield here, one shield on my side, and one health remaining. So, yeah, that ship was about to explode. This one took a little bit of damage because all the fire was going in this. Ken obliterated all my small ships, but I had his last Architon almost down. This is how you can see, like, he was able to transfer shields to the other side to keep it alive. It had 3 health left, and the Gazanti on 1 health. So the game ended with me killing 303, mainly because I killed his flagship, and then Ken killed 100 points of my stuff, almost my flagship. So, like, we were both hurting in this game. So the MOV was 203, 3-8, but, like, it's 1 damage card away from almost getting flipped. I still think I would have won, but it would have been a lot closer. Because if he were to have taken down that Dreadnought, it would have been 165 points. So it would only be like a 40-point game at that point. If like our Star Destroyer and the Providence both killed each other off. So, yeah, really close, really good game. So let's jump back to this. So if you guys have any thoughts or questions or anything you guys want to talk about, I actually finished the description pretty well, but that's because Ken and I both basically built really simple ships. So there wasn't like a lot of talk about it build-wise, because I don't think I would change anything in my build or his build, because it was all kind of just like sleek and all had a purpose. So I'm going to check out chat, and you guys can let me know if you have anything you want to talk about. Luminar was the bane of the world's qualifier. I was happy to get my Plo to 8th place that day. I love Plo. So my question for you, if you're still in the chat, is do you play Plo with Y-Wings or do you play Plo with Arcs? Because there's different mentalities for that, or mixed even. I've seen mixed as well. I very much so am a Y-Wing Swarm player when I play Plo. And then like other people are Architons. I just never get I never get what I need out of Architon dice. In the game, for example, an extra deployment would have mattered without a few squadrons. Yeah, so yeah, that's about it for that. So if you guys don't really have anything else, I'm probably gonna wrap it up for the night. So for this week, looking forward on Ion Radio, we have a big announcement for the end of the week. We have the Madness like intro video of like all the fleets and their makeups and everything like that that's going to be coming out on Friday. So we're excited to start talking about that. Ken and I are well on our way to finish filming Madness and getting it edited so we can get those videos out to you. Madness is like one of our favorite parts of the the year, actually. Like, we love playing the Madness. We wish we could do a bigger tournament. Like, every year, like, right after Madness gets done, Ken and I start talking about plans, like, how we could set out to do more fleets for Madness. But, like, 16 fleets is already enough. Like, and it takes literal months of filming to get it all done. So, like, we can't really expand more than that. But we're excited for that. So you play arcs, but recently tried a mix. My squad group, yeah. I haven't played Plo, I think, since Delta Anakin came out, because I usually have as Luminara for my Plo group as the adept person, and like she just makes everything a little bit tankier, and then like Ahsoka on a Venator, so then the Y-Wings can, with flight controllers, do snipe. It's just fun because people don't expect it when Y-Wings come rolling in with 3 dice snipe. It's just kind of funny. I don't know how competitive that really is, but I found it fun. So I think Delta Anakin, though, just changes the entire landscape for Republic players, and how you build squad balls around him, which Plo doesn't really want to build it around him. But he kind of is forced to, because he's just such a powerful piece on the table. Yeah, Ken always is like, we could do 32 games, just not film them, and I'm like, but why play them if we're not filming them? So, let's see, anything else? Those of you that are watching and enjoy BattleTech, I got 2 more of the new Merc boxes in that I'm going to be trying to film up unboxings for the next week. I have I always butcher their name. Starts with an E. Arati Light Horses, and then the Kellhounds. So I will be filming those up. I looked at the models. Some of them are really, really cool. I started off with Hansen's Rough Riders, and like its jumping mech is okay. But the 2 jumping mechs that come in the other 2 boxes are just way cooler, so I can't wait to show everyone that. So right now I'm trying that mix, but it fly really different due to the Luminara Delta. Yeah, Luminara Delta's mean. Good morning, Scott. Welcome to the screen. You are late to the party. I just finished kind of talking about everything, so you can go back when we're done and check it out. If you have any questions, though, you can just ask them, and I'll try to answer them. Yeah. So instead of Y-Wings, you got Torrents and Arcs for snipers. Arcs are really good snipers. I just like, I have all my Y-Wings painted. I just like bringing a swarm of Y-Wings. I played at the last LVO that I went to. If you want, you can go back and you can check out a video I made on that. That was like 4 years ago now. I brought my Rebel Y-Wing bomber, Dodonna list. This is, of course, before Agate. Like, obviously, Agate would be a better choice. But if you flew into that with a ship, it just ate you apart with Nora. Nora, Y-Wing, and rerolls. Oof. It's good. Good afternoon, Tony. Where are you in the world that it's the afternoon? Last time I considered oddball instead of loom. Yeah, you can just open, but you need the depth. That's the problem. Like, to leverage Plo Koon Foley is how I've always seen it, and like that's one of the reasons why I like it with Y-Wings, because like people aren't worried about trying to pin Y-Wings down because they're heavy, and then like that adept allows them to move when they're only pinned by 1, and then move away and then snipe, which is a lot of fun. My Torrents always surprise me and my opponent. I think I've talked about this before, but for me, I always see Torrents as a 2 dice fighter because they have the red dice. So like I look down upon them like they are less than even TIE fighters. They're like really, really weak X-Wing TIE fighters. The aces for them, that's actually one of the problems I have with GAR as a whole, is their dice. So let me pull it up. So an Architon without snipe is a red and 2 blue, so 2 dice. The Torrents are a red and 2 blue, so 2 dice. But they have swarms, so they at least can try to re-roll one of them. The Y-Wing with a blue and a black, I actually feels like the best option for most of their anti-squadron. Like, I know people like different. Oh, it's so cool when the red comes up as a double, but like that's so rare that it doesn't really matter. I'd rather just have like reliable dice on the fighter, like 3 blues or like, you know, some black dice thrown in there. Right? An Obi-Wan at a 2 would be amazing. With friendly, no unique gets escort. My red dice are terrible. I should one day just pull up the file. I know I've talked about it before. I'm trying to think of where it is, but I like kept track of all the dice rolls for like almost 3 seasons of our of us playing. I think it was from like episode 30 to 43 and then the next 2 seasons. Because I would always be like, my dice, this and that. And Ken's like, well, they weren't that bad. And then I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure they were bad. So I went through and I did like a super, super nerdy, detailed Excel file for like every single game. And then came up with averages, like average initial plus average reroll. And then average after defensive rerolls and canceling and things like that. And my dice were significantly under average on red, while Ken's were significantly above average. And then, like, even that, then we were looking at, like, mine were significantly under average after effects that allowed me to reroll and set dice, while Ken wasn't using any rerolls or set dice, and his were significantly above average, and they're the same dice. So maybe I need to walk on the other side of the table or something like that sometime. Or like fighters, like. Let me see if I even have it on this computer. It might be on my phone. I just honestly, I have files in so many different places over so many different computers. Maybe I'll pull it out and it will be a surprise for the next backseat I do when I find it. Let's do that. But some of the numbers were like crazy. Like, some of the games Ken would roll like more than 1 point of damage on red dice. So it was like averaging out to be like 1.01 or something like that. I'm like, how do you do that much damage? It's just crazy. Or like you can see like, because I would have marked like how many dice Ken would have double, and then after I force reroll and then still be doubles, because that was a joke for a long time. Like I would just force all of his doubles into doubles, and like that showed up too. It's just kind of funny how sometimes you just are angry at your dice and there's no proof, but then sometimes you do a deep dive and you're like, I should just melt all my dice. They're all terrible. Ken says I can't roll dice on his side of the table. Which, to be fair, my dice luck comes in BattleTech, though, because I'm really good at headshotting Ken's mechs out of existence. So, like, there's that. I always bring it up because it's one of our favorite, both of our favorite moments on the channel is when my grasshopper jumps behind him and just boom, punches him in the head and kills his pilot. So, yeah, I'll find that file and then I'll walk through. Maybe I'll do a deep dive and walk through the damage for it. And then you guys can go back and watch the games again and see what you think. Hey, John, you only have to make an example out of one red dice before the rest roll better. Oh, that's true. Did I ever tell you guys about the story of growing dice? So, obviously, Ken and I play each other all the time. So, I would go to tournaments and then like suddenly I had like an extra dice. I think it's an extra blue dice. And I don't know where I got it from. And I checked with everyone that went to the tournament and was playing at the store and no one claimed it. So my dice had a baby. And then like a year later, I have another dice. So I have like 11 blue dice and I don't know where they came from. So we play with a set of 3 packets of dice. So here's the first 3, second 3, fourth 3, and then the baby blue dice that's just extra. And like I've always checked, like stealing someone's dice isn't fun, but no one has ever laid claim to it. And it was like at the time we were playing at a store and there was only like 4 people that were there, and everyone had all their dice, so I don't know where it came from. So I carry around 10 blue dice. We also tried switching to the Clone Wars dice when the Clone Wars expansions came out, because, you know, I got like a ton of Clone Wars expansions, so I just have like piles of dice. And Ken and I both found that they rolled terrible. So if you watch some of our early episodes with Clone Wars, I think we switched them out after like three games and went back to the original set because it wasn't good for either of us, and we both noticed how bad they were rolling and had to switch them out. So they're just sitting in a case over there, just a whole pile of dice that don't get used. Yeah, the plink damage is the absolute worst. A lot of people know him as like J Odo on Discord, so Jack locally. I played him. It was just right when the Clone Wars came out, and I was just playing around just with stupid builds just to have fun. And I went to the store, and he was playing with a list. I actually put the list on the channel. It ended up going against Kraken, so it wasn't as effective, but it was all about paper cut damage. And it was like a couple Peltas, a Venator for Obi-Wan, and then a couple counselors, which I haven't actually used a counselor in a long time, so maybe I need to go back and make a list with them. Like, it's been a long time since I played with counselor, because they're just so subpar compared to, like, Peltas. And I was playing, like, a Tarkin spat list, and he came in at me, and it was like, he had rerolls, and then, like, he had intensify firepower, so everything was a hit, and it would be like 3 red dice, 3 damage, and you're like, okay, so what do I do against that? Do I brace it? No. Do I redirect it? No. Guess I'll take 3 damage. And then he'll get 2 shots at you with each ship, and it was like 3 damage, 2 damage, and you're like, okay, I guess I don't use my defense tokens. And then he had like reactive gunner and everything. So then it would be like, here's another point of damage. And you're like, well, I don't use my defense tokens on 1 point of damage. And then like the next ship would activate and it would be like 3 damage, 3 damage. And then you'd shoot at it and it would be like, here's 2 damage back. And I was like, ooh. He like killed an entire Venator in like 1 turn with just small paper cut damage because there's nothing I can do. Like brace 3 to 2 doesn't really matter in the end when he's hitting you with like 6 packets of 3 damage. It's just brutal. Yeah, we did permanently jail those. They were terrible. Yeah, like absolutely terrible. So if you guys get an annoying fan mail, then a dice and say it's a gift. Yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to talk about. No, Worlds is coming up soon. That's like a month away, so I got to figure out what I want to fly for that. So I got to figure that out, and then I got to paint whatever I want to match that, so I got to get painting going. After our last BattleTech video, people were asking about BattleTech again, so Ken and I are going to try to get a learn to play for BattleTech, like Alpha Strike out. Alpha Strike's pretty simple compared to BattleTech, and it's a pretty good point into the game, so I got to do a lot of painting. That's really what I have to do. So we're going to have to get going on that. It's amazing how much planning we have to do to try to stay ahead of everything. So it's sometimes like a full-time job, just planning and getting ahead of things, and then editing and filming it. So it's been a busy last month. So, okay, so I think I'm going to call it here. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Later this week, you have the fun of seeing our Madness fleet. So Ken and I are both really, really excited for you guys to see that. I think Ken was going to be talking about it in the video about how he seeded everything. If not, we can talk about it at a later time. But, like, all the lists came pretty close in how they were seeded. So, like, when we say like 1 seed versus 16 seed or something like that, the number difference isn't very, very different, which is good. So lots of close games. That's about it. So I will see you in 2 weeks. When our next episode comes, we'll do a backseat. So until then, thank you very much for tuning in. And thanks for Ken hanging out with the chat and everyone else that's in the chat. Until next time, I'm John, and you've been watching Ion Radio.